What's good, Kanekis? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. I am joined today by a very special guest, Lynette Zang. She is an ex-banker, ex-stockbroker with decades of experience, and she is currently running a YouTube channel with the same name, Lynette Zang. And she may not know it, but she is an indirect mentor to a whole host of people, myself included. So I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful to be joined by you today, Lynette. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, I'm happy to be here and however I can be of service, because what we're really doing, and that's how you made me feel, is that we are building this community. And it is critically important to do that right now.
Indeed, indeed. So I'm going to kick us off with what might seem like a trivial question, but definitely not to many people who may not know. Where are we in the dollar's life cycle? Because you have decades of experience looking at the life cycle of currencies, so I think that's a great place to start. Where are we when it comes to the dollar?
Boy, I'm really sorry. And I can't just contain it to the dollar. It would be true for every single currency on this planet. We are
Hmm.
at the end of the life cycle of the currency. And we don't, and they're just all of these indicators, because honestly, there have been over 4,800 currencies that have gone the way of the dodo bird. And this experiment is not any exception to the rule. But I say that we're at the end because, according to the Federal Reserve, and anybody can look at this, and I actually encourage you to do so. You can go on and do a search of the Federal Reserve Education Department, FRED. And in that
Hmm.
search bar, put purchasing power of the consumer dollar. And then what you will see is that what started out as $1 is officially 3 cents left. But the real key in this, if you look on that graph, you look down on the left hand axis, the Federal Reserve is actually telling you what the true value of this stuff is. And it's zero, zero. So we are very, very close officially, which means it's worse than that.
Yeah.
And this would be true because you can now go into any other currency exchange. I think the US does it because it has the title of the world reserve currency, because you can't really find that for most other currencies. But you could go into any currency converter and then compare that currency against the dollar. And what you're going to find is that that currency is likely doing worse or better against the dollar at that moment, but they're all losing that purchasing power. So once you get to zero on purchasing power, well, then what do you have to do? You have to attack principal,
Hmm.
right? But that's why
Hmm.
I say we are at the end, the very end of this currency's life cycle. And we have not been taught what that life cycle looks like. Like, we know it for people, right? I have a granddaughter that's 10. You are not going to look at her and go, oh, I bet you she's going to be 71 on her next birthday. Just like you're not going to look at me, and I will be 71 on my next birthday. You're not going to look at me and go, oh, I bet she's going to be 11 on her next birthday. No, because you know what that life cycle looks like. And because you understand that, you know what to expect at all of those different stages of a person's life cycle. Same thing is true for a piece of fruit, right?
Hmm.
You know what it
Hmm.
looks like when the blooms first come out on the tree in the spring, and then you get the little piece of fruit, and then it matures and it sits out on the counter too long and it dies. So we know what that looks like. The same thing is true for currencies and currency life cycle. And we're at the very end. I'm sorry. And we've already begun the shift and the reset into the next currency system. Because one thing I would like to point out, and I'm putting my technical neck on the line here, and I'm fully prepared to do that because there is not one little doubt in my mind about this, but that
Okay.
when President Trump signed the Genius Act, which legalized stable coins, he changed the global monetary system, and you may not be aware of it yet, but you will be soon. And he ushered in the mechanism that will generate the hyperinflationary crisis that will then justify and scare enough people, the crap out of people, to go into
Always
the
does.
system.
Always does. And I'm very happy you brought that up because I watched your live stream yesterday. It was phenomenal.
Well,
And I read on the Bank of England's website about CBDC. So CBDC is stablecoins. They use lots of different names, but it's practically the same thing. And on the website, they say digital cash is meant to replace physical cash. And I'm wondering why would they want to do that? What is the purpose of replacing cash?
One of my very favorite reports from the International Monetary Fund is the 2015 report that they did, and this is the title of it. I suggest everybody read it, but breaking below the lower zero bound. The IMF 2015 report, breaking below the lower zero bound. In this report, they actually outlined how they would introduce getting rid of or getting you to volunteer cash. Because you have to remember that central banks and governments like distance between their policies and how it is introduced to the public so that you don't understand that it was their policy, right? And so they in that report, they talk about how they could do it overnight, but they would have that retail public. So you go into the store. How many stores do you go into now and you see no cash? You got to use your card, right? Well, when did that start? That started during COVID. What a shocker, Rooski, right?
Never let a crisis go to waste.
Exactly. But they want you to volunteer the cash because if they immediately took it away, you'd know there would be something different.
Yeah.
But they know how to make these transitions. Also in that report in the very end, if you go to the conclusion, that paragraph, we know how to do this. And they reference back to 1913, 1971. But they also give you an 18-step outline of how to make this transition, which is so interesting. If you read this stuff, they tell you the playbook. They tell you why they need to get rid of cash. Because right now with cash, while this does not protect your purchasing power, it protects your principal. But once they get all your purchasing power, well, what's next? They got to take your principal. That's what negative rates were about that they tested in 2009. It didn't work, but they came out, the central bankers came out and said, negative rates are a choice. I'm sorry. Work my butt off. I'm going to try to accumulate this garbage that's losing value constantly. Then I'm going to loan it to you, knowing full well that I'm going to accept it back less than what I loaned you to begin with. Now, who would I really do that for other than my children?
Mm, mm, mm.
Right? So is it a choice? Or, but once they go digital, what the central banks say is then there will be no limitations on how low they can push interest rates. Yeah, because because if you have no access, even if they don't have the opportunity to get all of the cash out of the system, here's their solution to it. Okay. They have two solutions. Number one, there will be a chip in the cash that is classified as cash in the wild, right? Because it won't have a chip in it. The purpose and design of the chip is to be exactly what the banks are doing with whatever the deposits are. So if you go to remove cash, okay, it's going to be reflected in those chips and how much you get. If you go to deposit the cash, again, because of the chips, that will be reflected. If you go to utilize that cash, so let's say you can still go to the grocery store and use cash for your purchases, it will be recognized. The true number value on there will be recognized. There won't be any place for you to hide unless you do it with sound money. And I need to define sound money in here
Go on.
because I realize most people don't really know what that is. But
Yeah.
very simply put, sound money is physical gold and physical silver that is above all governments and central banks. And that is because it is used in every single sector of the global economy. So it can be used in food, it can be used in electronics, it can be used in solar, it can be used in medicine, it's used in the financial system, on and on and on and on and on. Therefore, it has the broadest base of utility and the broadest base of buyer. So maybe they're buying a little bit less over here, but they're buying more over here. So it actually is self-diversifying because of every single industry uses gold and silver. Ta-da! So it's not rocket science.
It's not. It's really not. To us, it sounds simple, but the psyop over the years has managed to sort of convince people that gold is risky. And
Yes.
but and I'm just curious, like, because with government bonds, they say government bonds are risk free, but then they pay you an interest. The reason they pay you an interest is because of the risk that you might not get it back. But then gold doesn't pay interest because it is risk free. And
Perfect.
you see, you look at
100% right.
yeah, you look at something like that and you're like, shouldn't more people be aware of this? Even people in the financial system, they should be more aware of this, but they don't stop to ask.
There are a couple things in there. Number one, the report, the Bank for International Settlements, so the BIZ, did a report a couple of years ago on what place for gold in reserves. Okay, I think they did in 2020 or I don't know, but you can pull it up. And what they say is that gold held at home, mind you, is the only, not one of two, not one of five, the only financial instrument that runs zero counterparty risk. Zero. Because to your point, it is the single safest thing that you can do. This is why the global central banks are loading up on more gold than they ever have since they started tracking, because they want to retain their freedom, they want to retain their choices, and they want to retain their independence. And that kind of sounds like exactly the same reason why we need to be doing that too.
Indeed, indeed. So on that note, could you please take us through the journey of how we went from using gold and silver as money to using bank credits today? Because it's not cash we're using, it's bank credits.
Well, all of this, and even when you're talking about cash, just pull out a bill and look at what's on top, and it's the Federal Reserve note. What's a note? A note is a debt instrument. So we actually work for government debt.
Yeah.
And when you really do understand that, boy, it changes your perspective. But
much.
This is how they do it. They keep things looking as normal as possible. And I absolutely love doing this example. Okay. So first, we're walking around with this. And oh my goodness, you put too many in your pocket. It could pull your pants down. It's so heavy. How inconvenient. Ugh. Why not just have these easy little bills? And oh, by the way, it's a gold certificate. Look at the gold on the bill. And you can walk into any bank with this and walk out with this. So it's just the same. What's the problem? This is 20 bucks. This is 20 bucks. But at the same time, they used corporate debt and they converted that into, ba-bam, Federal Reserve notes. which look an awful awful lot alike the gold certificate. And so we had 20 years of everybody using all three things interchangeably. So what did that do? It taught people these were all the same. So when this went away, this was left. And everybody's like, oh, cool, rock and roll hoochie coon, nothing changed. When in reality, everything had changed. And the biggest thing that had changed was that we, the public, gave up. When we agreed to this, we gave up our power over elected and unelected officials. Because up until 33, if you did not like what the government was doing, or you did not like what the central bank was doing, you just walked in with this and you walked out with that. And that put restrictions around how much new money and how much debt they could take on. Because in the beginning, it was this. This is a 1 ounce gold coin. See how teeny weeny it is? It's a 20th of an ounce. Okay. Yeah. And that was equal to a $1 silver coin, which was equal to, I have a silver certificate in here somewhere. Here it is. So I don't know if I can hold two coins in this. But okay. These at one point were all equal. So again, when that went away, you still had these two. Okay. But what happened in 1965? Because one of the things I want you to understand is that as it gets more expensive, so I'm going to back up a little bit here, but as it gets more expensive to create the money, then they need to go to cheaper money. So this 20th of an ounce backed $1, right? When they legalized the Federal Reserve, that was 1913 in December, Christmas time, convenient. They legalized the Federal Reserve. Now this 20th of an ounce backed $2.40 because they said they needed more flexible money.
You see, it's always about convenience. They always sell it to us as convenience. It's too heavy for you, so use this note. You don't have to carry all that gold around. With the credit cards, oh, you don't have to carry all these paper bills around. You just have one credit card. Oh, with your phone, you can pay with your phone. You always have your phone around, so if you forget your credit card, you can have your phone. It's always convenience.
You got it exactly. That is exactly right. But look at the silver. Look at the silver, right? Because silver was still our money up until 1965. Then they came out with, well, they were exactly the same size and shape because they needed to fit in vending machines. They needed to be all the same, except you look on the edge. This is all silver. This has base metal, some copper color metal in the middle of it. So this retains its value. We have a quarter card that we use. This actually costs us somewhere in the vicinity of about $6. This doesn't even buy what this originally bought. This is nothing. It's garbage, right? And look at the penny. The penny is going away because it costs 3.9 cents to create 1 penny, which prior to 1982 was 85 or 95% copper. In 82, they took it down to 15% copper because it was too expensive to create the pennies. And now they're getting rid of the pennies altogether because it costs 3.9 cents to create each penny. But do you know how much it costs to create each $100 bill?
With the paper, probably not a lot, but now that it's digital, it's free, isn't it?
Exactly. You went exactly about. This actually, according to the Federal Reserve, costs them I think it's either 9.4 or 9.7 cents because it's got that digital. Oh, this is an older one. It's got that digital strip in it.
All right.
Okay. It's got that digital strip in it, so it costs a little bit more. Now you have to work 100 times harder for this, where all of that money, the difference between the 9 cents and the $100, that's all gains for the central bank. The central bank then takes that money And that's how they fund themselves. But to your point, and this is it, and this is what I'm trying to tell you, when money gets more, and when the current money costs more to create than how much they have devalued that currency, they have to go to cheaper and cheaper money. And frankly, the cheaper and easier it is to create, the more money gets created and the less value all of that money that's out there has.
Oh my goodness.
And let
You
me
have,
point out that the Federal Reserve, with all of that's called seniorage, right? With
yeah, yeah.
all of that money, that all that new money creation, that they get to keep the difference between the cost and you, they still ran losses. We're now in, I believe, the fourth year in a row where they haven't been able to give the Treasury, because if they have any left, that's the money that goes to the Treasury.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
It's
So yeah,
evil.
digital money is way easier. And you brought something up earlier that I think we should talk about a little bit more, and that's the
Yeah, go
difference
on.
between CBDCs and the stable coins. You know what the
Yeah, go
difference
on.
is? Who
What?
has control of them? You can take your pick. You want the central banks to have control of it and all of that, or do you want Amazon? Because Amazon has control of this. And
Mm,
while I was questioning, I mean, what justifies all of this money printing? I wish that happened to them. But, you know, debt justifies that money printing. And I had been asking and seeking, well, what's going to justify creation of the new money? All of my reading showed me either debt or purchases. I got my answer. You know what the answer is?
what is it?
Both. Because they issue those stable coins, right?
Yeah.
That's about you going to Amazon and wanting to shop. So here, we're going to give you all of these benefits and blah, 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 blah. If you just use our stable coins, blah, 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 blah. So it's your purchases that will justify Amazon creating those stable coins. And then with the Genius Act that was recently passed in the
Mhm.
US, then they have to go and they have to back those stable coins 1-to-1 with dollars, which means boom, they have automatically created an artificial market for dollars and those treasury bonds that the whole world, the rest of the world, is turning away from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both. And let me tell you, this is why I believe that the stable coins are going to be used to usher in the hyperinflation and the next currency. And that's why I'm fighting so hard, honestly, on a global basis to get sound money, redeemable gold back into the new system. Best opportunity I've ever seen in my entire life to
Completely
get
agree.
sound money back in the system. And we can do it because there's 8.4 billion people on this planet. If we can get 3% just to convert their garbage fiat into sound money, now we got a voice. And I think we can. I don't know. I don't know if I can do this or not, but I think we got a shot at having a seat at the table and demanding it. And it has to be redeemable. Because, like we've seen in Zimbabwe, their attempt to get the public to use the new currency, they're in their
Yeah.
sixth iteration. Hey, it's gold back. Now, mind you, it's digital. You can't redeem it. So trust us because we're telling you it's 40% gold back. But they came out with a currency in April and they revalued at 44% in October. If it was truly gold backed, they couldn't do that because the
Yeah.
public would have rushed to take the gold out. But so if it is not redeemable, it is garbage. It is a lie. Don't believe it.
There you go, guys. There you go. And Lynette, actually, right before this interview, I had a thought about the digital versus real cash. And I was like, what countries have this? So in China, they have what's called the digital yuan. I
Mhm.
looked it up. It said uh All you need as a wallet is your phone number. And so I'm from Ghana, and in Ghana we have something called mobile money. Everyone uses it at the supermarket, at the local market, everyone uses it. And it's incredibly fast, like the payments are fast, is exactly what they say, but it doesn't pay you any yield. So with the typical bank, you could put your cash in the bank and you can get some interest. It's the same thing as they're doing with CBDCs, with stable coins, they're saying they're not allowed to pay you any yield. So that's another thing that was like, okay, so they're going to use the mobile phone numbers.
Mhm.
Another thing with the phone numbers, to get a phone number, you need an ID, and mobile phones automatically come with location trackers. So
Mhm.
they can track what you're spending and where you're spending it. And to put the icing on the cake, Lynette, it gets darker. It gets darker.
Oh,
So the
I
thought,
know.
so the thoughts I had was essentially with using your mobile phone as the wallet, that the phone acts as your bank. So it takes out the need for a bank. And I'm like, why would they need to do that? Is it because they know a banking crisis is very likely to happen? You
Yes.
should be go on, go on.
So there is so much in what you said because they can track absolutely everything that you're doing anywhere that you are if you are
Mhm,
completely dependent upon the system to do it. And as we saw in Canada during the perfectly legal trucker strike that the government did not like. So what did
mhm,
they do? Boom, they shut down their bank accounts, everybody that participated. And if you even donated $5 to these truckers, boom, your all of your insurance accounts, your bank account, everything, you lost
wow.
100% access to all of your wealth. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but on August 1st, there was a change, a test that is now being run in the US through the Social Security Administration system. So these
Okay.
are people, this is our fallback kind of retirement plan that a lot of people count on. It's not that much, but it doesn't keep pace with inflation by design.
Yeah.
However, in this system, where if there was some kind of red flag that might have popped up against you, they might go in and look at your bank account. But this was just upon a reason to do so. With the new law that they put in place, they're tracking everything on a continual basis, all of the flows in and out of your account. So if I decided, like when my mother was still alive, I every week I would deposit $300 into her account and then I would give her $100 in cash. Now, mind you, the cash, if she used the cash, that's not traceable. That's
Yeah.
why they want to get rid of the cash. But the bank account, it would have had today, it would impact her Social Security benefits, right? But not only would it have impacted her benefits, but now they're also looking at my accounts on a constant basis. And they'll look at all of the assets on a constant basis. So they do it, they always run these tests in places where the people are the most vulnerable, like the bail-ins in Cyprus, or it's a small country, or, so people go, that's over there. This can't
Yeah.
happen here. And, so with that group of people, of which I'm one, but is fortunately it's not going to have an impact on me. I don't care. I wouldn't have even taken it, but they made me. Um, well, seriously, but that I believe is the test to see, are people going to squawk? Are they going to be upset with this? Are we going to get pushback? How do we have to introduce it? That's why in this country, CBDCs, no CBDCs. So we'll do the stable coins. It's the same thing. It's just who's going to have the most control of it. But here's the kicker on those stable coins and going to the bank. So going back to your original point on that, and especially when you're talking about Africa, because
Mhm.
I don't know whether practice is so in Ghana, but it could very well be. But I know in places like Nigeria and Zimbabwe, et cetera, where because their currencies are in a hyperinflationary mode, they run to the safety, or the perceived safety is what I should call it, of dollars being more stable than the local currency. So they've already kind of bypassed the banking system and eliminated any level of buffer, right, between the collapse of the dollar and all of these people in third world countries that are trying to position themselves out of the local hyperinflating currency into something else that they perceive as safer. But the difference is honestly the speed, right? They're just a little bit further along. But with the advent of the stable coins and how quick and easy it is to create new money from purchases, and then the AI nudging you in the direction. And look, they've been talking about tokenization of assets for a long time. I think the very first report I did on this was 2015. Now you're holding all of your equity on your phone, and you've got AI that knows exactly how to nudge you in the direction to spend your equity. And before you know it, what the World Economic Forum has told us, by 2030, you will own nothing. I won't go that
And be happy. You won't go that second far. I probably will be happy as well in it.
kind of wondering if during feudal times, those worker bees, those servants, those slaves were particularly happy.
Well,
Right?
maybe Genghis Khan will have us think that they were.
Yeah. I mean, those that are at the top that aren't really living a normal person's life, they have no concept of how hard it is for people to feed their families,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How hard it is for them to just manage the basic things that you need to have a reasonable standard of living. I mean, it really bothers me. Honestly, I was born in 54. And at that point, we were, right after World War II, there was lots of free money, lots of programs, and the corporations were sharing in the productivity gains that we were making. And so people's standard of living were growing up until 71. That whole shift happened then because, after all, it should be the corporations and the governments that get all the benefits. That this is, on a gold standard, the playing field is level. We don't want a level playing field. We want to dominate. So in a fiat money system, winners and losers are chosen, and it's those people that get the money first when it has the most level of purchasing power. Go back to that Fred chart on purchasing power and put your birth date in there. And you too can see how much purchasing power has been robbed from you since the day you were born. That's not okay with me. I want a level playing field.
And on the topic of winners and losers, I mean, we're seeing it just this past week. Trump has picked Intel as the winner. He's saying they'd like a 10% stake in the company. Nvidia as well give their revenues to the government. I think Apple also had a deal with them. So you're right. I mean, they're definitely picking the winners and losers. And unfortunately, the losers are the small businesses. The everyday person is not getting a cut of these deals. And on that topic, JD Vance, the vice president of America, he had this to say, and I've written the quote down word for word so I don't get it wrong. And it went like this. He said, "The global reserve currency status is a massive subsidy to American consumers, but a massive tax on American producers." So this is him trying to advocate for a weaker dollar. And they're essentially saying that we're going to prioritize export over our local citizens. We're going to sacrifice your cost of living just to increase exports to prop up GDP. These are the people have elected to run the country. And I mean, when you're running America, you're running the whole of the Western world, really.
Yes, you really are. But the piece in here is that when there's no purchasing power left in the currency, so if you knew that you were declaring bankruptcy and you got some credit cards in the mail, what are you probably going to do? Now, ethically, it's a horrible thing to do, to go out and spend that money when you know darn well you're not going to pay it back. It's the same thing here. They know. I mean, come on. If I know this, how? And I'm going to tell you, I don't think most politicians, I don't think most people, I don't think most central bankers really understand money and monetary life cycles. I really don't. But they do know that there's virtually no purchasing power left. And everything in a Ponzi scheme, which is exactly what this is on a global basis, Ponzi schemes require new money and confidence. Those are the two things that every Ponzi scheme requires, right? And so one of the things that I track quite a bit is public consumer confidence. And so do they. They track consumer confidence, inflation expectations, because when the consumer loses confidence and we go below, we haven't yet dropped to the lowest level in confidence ever. We've been declining and we've been testing that bottom. When we break through to the other side, in my opinion, it is game over, because the beauty part of technicals is it does not matter what you're looking at. It all works the same. So you can be looking at confidence, you can be looking at a stock, you can be looking at a spot contract. Doesn't matter. They all work the same. And it's not rocket science. They want you to think it's rocket science so you think you can't understand it. But that's not true. Well, they've said it. I've read where they've said, if we make this really complicated, no one will question us. Because who reads that stuff but nerds like me? Not many people read that stuff. So I think they're a bit more honest in there than they are certainly when they're in front of a camera. Their job is to lie to the public because they have to keep you in the system. And if they told you the truth, you would make different choices, just like I have.
Yeah. And what was it that the FDIC banker in that leaked video said? We don't have a professional need to know.
Right. The
no
public
professional needs to
know. The corporations, they've got the attorneys. They're going to understand this. Ha, 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 ha.
They laughed. They laughed.
Be bailed in. And if you want that soundbite, we can send it to you.
Funny enough, I included that video. It was you on Kitco News with I can't remember her name now.
Michelle
McCurry. There we go, Michelle McCurry. Yeah. So I had that extract in the video and I reacted to it. It was honestly beautiful. Your analysis of it was absolutely incredible. So on that note, we're gonna go back to pensions now, because this is, to be honest, this is a question for me. I was dying to ask this. Okay. It might help some other people out there. So back in December, after understanding everything I know now about pensions, how they work, demographics as well, birth rates declining, meaning people aren't paying in as much, and obviously government deficits are increasing. I know that my generation, we're probably not going to get our pensions, so I decreased it from 5% to 2% monthly, just as a safety net. Who knows? Maybe they might find fiscal discipline. I don't know, but we'll see.
When they're forced, they're not going to volunteer.
They're forced to.
We got to force it, but we can. I believe we have a shot.
I agree. So I decreased it to 2%, and in July, I got an email from my employer saying, the government mandates that every now and then you have to increase your contribution to 5%. So for the month of July, it automatically went up, but it said you can take it back down if you want to. So because I'm obsessed with pensions and the whole math around it, I actually read the fine print. Some people wouldn't.
Right.
Some people wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I'm here thinking, okay, pensions versus gold. As a young person, what should I be investing in? Should I put more of my money into pensions? Because in the UK, they give you tax breaks. So if you pay, if you're a
Right.
high earner and you pay more into your pensions, that doesn't get taxed. So I'm wondering, okay, would it be better to just do that or to just buy gold, forfeit the tax because eventually gold would, like the increase in gold's value would outweigh everything I would have probably gotten from paying it into the pensions.
Right. Well, there are a few things in there, but I will say this, that you always personally, and so you can decide whether or not this is your preference as well. But
No
I
financial advice, by the
personally,
way.
well, no, oh no,
Yeah.
I personally believe that I want the lion's share of my wealth in an undervalued asset that is in a long-term positive trend, and the least amount of my wealth in an overvalued instrument that is in a long-term negative trend. So
Mm,
then when you're asking me about pensions, because what do they put that in? Do they put that in stocks or bonds or annuities or mutual, all that intangible stuff that can only be converted into whatever the local fiat money, government money is of the realm. So
exactly.
they push these things up so that you have the perception that you are better off when the real trend is in what you can convert it into, that purchasing power of the consumer fiat money, right? So a trillion, I do happen to have a $10 trillion, here it is, Zimbabwe note. And do you know? So I am a trillionaire in
Trillionaire,
Zimbabwe.
Lynette.
What can I buy with this?
Not even a basket of goods, I don't think.
Exactly. I can buy nothing with it. So I would highly recommend that people do not get blinded by numbers, but learn the truth. And how do you know how much something is worth? I mean, that's a good, the spot market says that spot gold is somewhere around 3,400 bucks.
Hmm.
So isn't that what it's worth? I mean, seriously, do you think that Wall Street is going to give you any good price discovery on anything?
No
Because the
way.
entire markets have been turned into financial products for trading. So, who really determines what your utility bills are going to be, what your water bills are going to be, what your food bills are going to be, what your insurance bills are going to be, what anything is going to be? It is not supply and demand, it is trading. So it is critically important that everybody understands how to get this. And just like I said, the technicals work the same for everything, so does the fundamental value. And here's how you
Hmm.
get it. I'll do it with gold, but you can do it with absolutely every single asset. And with gold, gold is sound money. This is fiat money. So they're both money, they're just the opposite sides of the coin. So, how is this created? Well, we know that at this point, this is justified by debt. And since most countries no longer tell you how much debt they're actually creating in one place, they took that away from us here in the US in 2006. And
Hmm.
because this is also a global issue, then you take globally what they admit to how much debt they've created. It doesn't take a lot of other things into consideration. So this is uber uh, conservative.
Yeah.
So according to the IFF, there is, the last time I checked, $313 trillion worth of global debt that has been created. There's your proxy for how much of this crap, it could be euros, yen, whatever, but how much of this crap has been created. With gold, or frankly anything physical, there is a finite amount of it. Plus, gold is indestructible. So
Hmm.
we can account for 98% of all the gold that's ever been mined in whatever form it is. And you're in the UK. So I kind of like to think of the King of England, right? This is wealth that has lasted, dynastic wealth. It's
Yeah.
wealth that has lasted in families at least 300 years. And it consists of three key things. gold, real estate, and truly rare collectibles. So that beautiful knotted tiara that Princess Kate wears, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is that asset. And it's either made of gold or platinum. I'm not really sure, but they have a lot of stuff that's made out of gold. So you take into account all of the gold that's ever been mined, and the Department of the Interior runs a report annually on how much gold is yet in the ground on a global basis. Total those two together, and you divide all the debt by all the gold, and it tells you what the true fundamental value for its most important function is. And the most important function for gold is to hold its purchasing power over time. That means I did it pretty recently, and the
Mm-hmm.
numbers came out that the true fundamental value of 1 ounce of gold is somewhere between 33,000 and 40,000 bucks. So if the spot market, which is just gold contracts, and they can create as much gold as they want without limitations, but the market reads it as if it exists, that's how they suppress the price of gold. Why
Yeah.
would they suppress the price of gold? Because a rising gold price is the primary currency metal is an indication of a failing fiat currency and a looming crisis. And they do not want you to know that, because once you really do know what money is, I'm telling you right now, you start to make different choices.
Completely agree.
Okay.
And just so the audience knows, the paper notes that you're holding there that are laminated, people used to work all day to earn that. They used to devote their blood, sweat, and tears to earn that. They had sleepless nights just to get that. And today it's not in circulation.
Well, some the gold certificates are not in circulation anymore, but
Those ones, yeah.
unfortunately, these Federal Reserve notes are.
Give it 50 years.
Well,
You might not need to take that out.
right. They'll be removing them, but they're going to get us to volunteer it. They're just going to
Yeah,
make it really expensive, or you go into a store and you can't use it, and people go, oh, okay, and turn around and walk out and say, well, if you won't
yeah.
take my cash, which is actually illegal, because it even says on here, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. So it is actually illegal not to accept cash, except nobody's
Mm.
going to really take that on and push it, because first of all, they don't understand it. They go, oh, all right, well, instead of this, I'll just use this, or I'll use my phone, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
It only works if it's voluntary.
Yes, it only
Like you
works.
said
And
at the top of it, it
mhm,
only works if it's voluntary.
yep.
Oh, Lynette, this is dark. This is so dark.
Well, I take
Onto
dog means good.
pardon, pardon.
Dog means good, or
No,
dog
no,
means
no,
bad.
no. I meant dark. It's dark.
Oh, it's
Like it's
dark,
really dark.
dark.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is,
Honestly,
but
I.
I mean, as dark as it is, this really is the point in being prepared, isn't it?
True. It is.
Because it is dark, and I'm doing what I can to make a difference and get sound money back in the system again. But I knew the system died in 2008. I mean, just like I'm sitting here telling you about the stable coins, there's not one doubt in my mind what happened in 2008. And then the whole world was just put on fiat money life support to give them time to set up the next system.
Yeah.
So that's when I became a prepper, right? Because what do we need to lead a reasonable standard of living? Food, water, energy, security, barterability, which for me is primarily silver, wealth preservation, which for me is primarily gold,
Hmm.
community, because we don't have the same kind of time that we once had,
Yeah.
and shelter. And I do put medicine in the food category, because that's the most important medicine you ever put in your body is food.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
these are the things that we need. But I started on that really in 2008, because I was 100% crystal clear that the system just died. I mean, Shearson was my alma mater. That's where I was a stockbroker. So,
Okay.
I was totally watching that like a hawk. Um, but we don't have that same kind of time. And so creating a local community where you get to know your local growers and creators of food. And I don't know, here's an idea: give them a day's worth of labor. You'll learn a new skill, which is also barterable, and you
Mm-hmm.
will start to create a relationship with somebody that's growing your food. Because when push comes to shove, and I think we can all see how rapidly, um, unfortunately, poverty and hunger is growing on a worldwide basis. So we've been, this is not true in all countries, but in this country, we have grown so dependent on the grocery store for our food. And I had an interesting incident where
Okay.
I had a friend of mine, and she was a dog trainer, and she came over to my house one day, and I took her out into my gardens, and I was showing her this lettuce and this, and I'm going, look at how gorgeous this is. It's so gorgeous. And afterwards, she said, when you were doing that and there was this little brown piece of lettuce over here, I was thinking, why is she saying that's gorgeous? Because if you go to the grocery store, you don't see that little brown piece of lettuce over here. You just see this pristine head of lettuce,
Mm.
and I realized that, at least in the US, people have been totally taught away from being self sufficient and independent. And we are going to need these skills. Look at Venezuela, where that was the same kind of circumstance. And then, as they've been going through their ongoing hyperinflation, now they're telling their population, have a chicken, grow a garden, because people are starving. So what I actually did is I was not a gardener, or that was not my thing. I'm a creative, but that was not
Mm-hmm.
my thing. But I had to feed my family. So I ended up planting out the whole exterior of my property, because I think, people that are hungry and hopeless make choices that they would not otherwise make. And so if I can grow food on the exterior of my property, and somebody that's hungry can walk by and pick a pomegranate, pick a zucchini, hopefully they won't destroy the food. Hopefully they'll realize they can come back every day and get more food to keep their family growing and
Yeah.
going. We have to help those people that cannot and do not see this. We have to, because it's not, I mean, how many times can you be lied to and you do not know the truth? And what we're really asking people to do is have a paradigm shift. And that means that they have to admit that what they have been taught and they believed their entire lives are a big fat lie. And I
Yeah.
do believe that we are going into a major revolution, because the younger generation, those that are graduating from college right now, have learned, well, how can they afford a house? How can they afford all those student loans?
Mm-hmm.
How can they even get married and move out of their family's house? Now, in Europe, it is much more normal for younger people to stay in the home longer, right? But in the US, they usually leave a lot earlier, but not anymore, because they can't afford it. And that breeds revolution. So
It
I'm trying to
does.
do it in my old way with sound money, because it's very easy and peaceful to just convert your fiat money into sound money and become your own central banker, and then come together in community so you can create surety in food, water, energy security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter, right? And then take it on a global basis and go, we will not use these new currencies until they have redeemable gold in them. We got a shot.
Yeah. And on that point of young people struggling, a stat recently came out, the first of its kind, that 630 graduates in the UK are on benefits. We're talking university graduates. 630, sorry, 630,000 of them on benefits. And considering the government can't support welfare much longer, the UK government is also running deficits. This is where community
Shocking.
comes into play. Yeah, this is really where community comes into play because you can't rely on the government anymore. You have to look at your local area to help you through what's coming.
Exactly. And where they've been doing everything in their power, really planning out how to divide us, because it really is divide and conquer. If we are not having these conversations, then we are not able to transfer information and enable people to make educated choices that puts their best interest first, right?
Hmm.
If they can divide us and we're so busy trying to, feed our families and pay our bills and figure this out and figure that out, which, by the way, was part of their plan. They actually even said it. If people have to
Okay.
work harder to maintain their standard of living, they will have less time to look at what we're doing. They actually said that. I mean,
Crying out loud.
you just go, really? Did you just say that? But yes, they did say that. You have to understand all of this is by design. And so by design, we have to take our power back. We have to become as independent and self sufficient inside of community so that we can not just weather this storm, but thrive through it and have a better outcome on the other side of it. It has to happen. You have to understand there is no purchasing power left. The system is dead.
Yeah.
Now we have a choice on how we walk through this next reset piece. And because really, when one currency dies, another one is born. And gold and silver really is the bridge to get you from one system into the next system with your purchasing power intact. But it also enables you to take advantage of the opportunities and the crisis along the way, because in order to keep your eyes on this stuff, all of this money printing and that money goes into those assets. So real estate and fiat money assets, stocks, bonds, cryptos,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what people are trained to look at, and it pushes them up in numbers. But then they keep their wealth in the system. They don't protect themselves at all. I don't think it was a coincidence that Bitcoin was born in January of 2009, and quantitative easing, which is money for free, was born in
Hmm.
March of 2009. Have you read the 1996 NSA, which is a US government agency? Have you read the NSA white paper on how to create a mint? Because this is
What's this?
exactly the gameplay that they have done. I mean, and then you have the smart contracts. There was a peer review paper that came out, I believe it was in 1998, on smart contracts. And so now you're walking around with every bit of equity, whatever you've managed to develop over time on your phone. You sell it off in teeny weeny pieces. You might have $100,000 worth of equity in your house, but hey, it's broken down into itty bitty teeny weeny pieces. And now you see this boat and you got 100,000 and the boat's, 5,000. I still have plenty. And before you know it, you're selling these little pieces, and all of a sudden, the smart contract locks you out of your house if you're in a smart house, locks you out of
Mm.
your car, right? Because you've now breached the contract. And who can you call? Oh, nobody. It's an algorithm.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I'm telling you, they've talked about this. This is not me. These are the central bankers and the central planners. I don't make this stuff up. I just read their reports. And I'm telling you, my father, it's an example that I don't really like to use because it kind of makes him sound less than. And to me, he
Right.
was the greatest man on the planet. but we used to have this little banter when I was growing up, and he'd say to me, do what I say and not what I do. Now, he was really mostly talking about driving because he never looked in the rear view mirror. So he was
All
always
right.
backing into trees and stuff and bikes and people and stuff. But
People.
he did run over my niece once. He did.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
But, she had kind of a flat thigh for a while, but
Oh no.
this is a true story. But he'd say to me, do what I say and not what I do. And I used to say to him, Daddy, that doesn't make any sense. And what I realized is because that was kind of like this little banter thing that we did, it was kind of like our thing. And so I realized that a lot of what I do is I read what they write, I listen to what they say, and then I watch what they do. When
Mhm.
their actions support their words, I know that what they're saying is the truth. But when their actions do not support their words, I know what they're saying is a lie. And by a very wide margin, it's a lie because their job is to keep you in the system. That's really their job.
That is a phenomenal framework to use. That is a really good framework. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. So, Lynette, after everything we've talked about, let's try to finish on a light enough note. And my final question to you is, what are your sources of peace and calm during this storm and chaotic time?
Well, I do have a bug out location because in 2020, I'm walking around my urban farm. And when here in the US, the grocery store shelves were bare, right? And I'm walking around my farm going, oh, look at how smart I am. This is not a problem. I could share toilet paper. I could share everything, right?
Uh,
But there were riots near my house because I kind of live near the Capitol and I am in dead central Phoenix. And then there were riots near my children's house, and they live in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley at a really nice mall. I went, because that night I slept with a gun in my bed, which is not the way I like to live my life. So
yeah.
after that, I realized I needed a bug out location, someplace that I could go that would be safe. So that helps me sleep a lot at night because it is stocked up with food and long storage food, and it's completely off grid. So I've got all solar and I can accommodate 40 people up there. So I can create a community up there with a variety of skill sets. And I've put in orchards and things like that. But also, what makes me sleep well at night is I know I've executed my mantra: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. I have done all of those 8 pieces. And so whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, doesn't matter. And whenever it
Mm.
happens, I'm going to tell you, I did not know 1 second before Lehman went out, not 1 second. And I was watching it like a hawk. And I
Oh.
consider myself highly technical and very well educated and versed in this stuff. And I could not have told you 1 second before Lehman went out and the system, boom. Remember that? 24 hours gone, even though I had known something very nasty was coming. So having all of those things in place, being surrounded by really strong and powerful people in their own right, right? So my community of
Mhm.
farmers and builders and doctors and teachers and all of this, right? That's what makes me sleep well at night because I know that I can take care of all of us. I
It
know.
sounds like you've.
Yes, I
It
know.
sounds
It
like you.
tells us. I know I can keep us safe.
I was gonna say it sounds like you've created your own version of Atlas Shrugged. I don't know if you know the movie or the book.
Yes, I do. I
Yeah.
haven't read it in a very long time, but yes, I
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Fran said that was a very interesting book, and she has some very interesting quotes on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the timing, right? If you understand history, and you especially know how to identify the life cycles of all different things, then you can always anticipate what is the next most likely outcome, right? So you can always get into position to thrive through it. What is the hardest is saying, well, this is going to happen Tuesday morning at 8:35.
Yeah.
I did not, I didn't see, honestly, I did not see quantitative easing, right? I knew the system died. And so it's perfectly logical. Once they did that, I'm like, okay, there it is. And then China was the one that came out and said what the next currency was going to be, which is the SDR, which makes all the sense in the world. Everybody's got some, been around since 69, blah, 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 blah. But, just get prepared. Stop procrastinating. People
Yes.
think they have all the time in the world, but I have to tell you, and I am as serious about a heart attack on this one. The Genius Act changed everything. It's already done. And everybody's going to be very aware of it within very, very short order. They couldn't execute Basel III. They need more time for that. And that was started with the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010. But let me tell you, as soon as that Genius Act was signed, the banks, oh, we've got the stablecoins. Oh, we're doing this. Isn't that interesting?
Uncanny timing. Uncanny timing. Lynette, so could you please tell the people where to find you and the business you do over there at Snag Enterprises, the consultations?
Absolutely. I am all over the place on YouTube. We do publish on a daily basis, and every Tuesday at noon Arizona time, I do a live. And I'll do a little something in the beginning, and then it's just lots and lots of questions and conversation. I'm really trying to
Yeah.
get more conversations in there, and everybody is welcome. It is not a cult, so we like lots of different opinions, right? And we want to support everybody because I think that's how you build a community. You just welcome everybody in and you hear everybody. And also, I'm very active on Twitter. YouTube and Twitter are at the Lynette Zang. Instagram and Facebook is at Lynette Zang. And of course, there's the website, LynetteZang.com. And I will say that it was not really my choice to name everything Lynette Zang.
SEO, right? SEO.
And
Well,
we have Emerald in now too. So it's not just me on these channels, and we're growing that more and more. So
yeah, I mean, I had a meeting with Calvin at the it was my first meeting, and honestly, after doing that one, I was like, yeah, Lynette has definitely got a good team here.
Oh,
You have, and
absolutely.
Marie as well, of course. You have a really good team.
We do. Maybe one of these days you need to come here and meet him face to face.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice?
I
So
will
Lynette, thank
at some
yeah,
point.
when you hear, I mean, I'm sure you have a way of letting the community know, so I'll be sure to keep an eye out for that. I'll do my best to be there. Thank you very much for joining me today. Best of luck with everything. Hopefully we can do this again soon.
I hope we do. This has been great, Kojo. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun. You did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's go. There we have it, Kanekis. I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Oh, Lynette is such a gem. She is such a gem for giving an hour of her time to me to sit down and discuss economics. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching this. Please hit the like button, subscribe as well if you're new and you haven't already. Do be sure to check out Lynette's channel and her consulting services. I used it. I booked a call with them for 30 minutes. They answered all my questions. Very, very, very smooth service. They really look after you. They care about what you have to say, and they lead you down the path of where you are to where you need to be in terms of your sound money and your finances. So do be sure to check them out. All right, that is it. I'm gonna be heading off on holiday for the next few weeks. So if the things slow down on the channel, that is why. Don't worry, I will be back around September, second week or so in September. So I will see you guys then. Be sure to subscribe, like, share it out. See you guys. Peace.